everybody, it's me, Nobody, and welcome to the 17th Annual Homelessness Marathon. This is America's night to talk about homelessness and talk with homeless people. A lot of things are going to happen tonight. We're going to cover a lot of topics. We're going to talk to a lot of people, but the first thing we're going to do, as we do every year, is we're going to light a candle in commemoration of all the homeless people who have died. This is not like some more abstract issues, philosophical issues, many important issues, but there are many important issues that are not issues of life and death. Homelessness is a matter of life and death for the people who are on the streets, and even the ones who don't die have a pretty miserable time of it. There are call-in numbers for this show. Anybody can call in 877-NOBODY-8, and if you're homeless, formerly homeless, or afraid you're going to be homeless, you can also call 866-LEFT-OUT. We came here to sunny Sarasota, Florida, and I told people whenever we've gone to a warm weather destination, the weather hasn't been good, and by gosh, it's going to rain all night. And that probably is going to cause some complications, but if it wasn't for complications, it wouldn't be the Homelessness Marathon. This first hour, we're going to talk about family homelessness, and my guests here in the booth are Jamil Collins, Program Director of Opportunities for the Salvation Army, John Thaxton of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, and Ellen McLaughlin with Sarasota's Schoolhouse Link. Let me say welcome to all three of you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I tell you, I'm very glad that we're talking about family homelessness first, because my feeling is this is one thing that Sarasota is actually doing right. I don't mean to imply it's the only thing, but every city is a mix of good and bad. There certainly are some bad things in Sarasota, too. But, John, let me start with you. What percentage of the homeless families in Sarasota is the city of Sarasota able to help?
Well, we're not only helping those in the city of Sarasota, but we're helping those throughout Sarasota County. And I think Ellen can probably speak more to the statistics, but I would suggest that a visit of the camps and the various places where homeless people reside would show that Sarasota County is doing a very good job at getting the homeless families, children off of the streets and into a sheltered environment and providing the services through programming that they need to become self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ellen, how would you answer that question then? That's good news, by the way. We shouldn't think that the streets are littered with homeless families, in other words. In
They are not, no.
Good.
No. Thanks to the ladies on both sides of me and another group of tremendous service providers, not-for-profit agencies, we've made remarkable progress over the last year and a half in assisting our homeless children and families.
And we should all be glad for that. Ellen?
For a long time, homeless families and children were invisible here in Sarasota and really across the region and the nation. So it's really hard to give an exact count of how many families are being served. Last year, we counted about 1,000. It was actually 924 homeless students in Sarasota County, which is about 350 to 400 families that were identified as homeless. They live in lots of places, sometimes in shelters or motels, or doubled up with relatives or friends after losing their housing. So it's a pretty big population, and there's a lot of agencies that have come together to try to address the issue.
Okay, and Jamil, you work directly with homeless families?
Yes, sir, I do.
And tell us some of the kinds of things you've encountered. Surely the homeless families don't become homeless by choice, so how do they become homeless?
It can be anything from not having affordable housing in Sarasota. That is a big thing right now. There really isn't a lot of livable wage housing. We've seen a decline in livable wage housing since 2005, since the housing market kind of went kaput. So a lot of those families, through no fault of their own, ended up either losing an apartment or having to go through foreclosure, and then there was no housing to replace that housing. So where else are they going to go but on the streets?
I think it's also interesting to note that the economic recovery has provided little relief for many of these families in this stressed environment, because with the economic recovery is coming an increase in rental rates, an increase in property values, but yet wages are stagnant, are declining. So the gap that the family can afford for safe and sustainable housing continues to widen as the economy improves. So it may be great and fine for many of us in the community that have access to the economy.
Right.
But many of these families do not have access to the economy, so the economic recovery actually works to their detriment.
Now, I should assert here that according to the National Coalition for the Homeless, which has been working with us on this broadcast, they're kind of our partners on this particular one, and we're grateful for their help. There's virtually no city in the country where a minimum wage job will get you housing. And this is a problem not just in Sarasota. People shouldn't think it's just some anomaly in Sarasota. This is a nationwide problem. Right. But Ellen, if I am understanding this correctly, what we're saying is that the problems afflicting homeless families are broader economic problems. This is not because they're all crack addicted or something like that.
Most families that I work with are employed. They're just making very low wages, maybe part-time work and at minimum wage, and a single parent with multiple kids just can't afford to pay the bills on that price.
And John, do we have any reason to believe that this economic situation is only affecting families? I understand that there's different kinds of homelessness, different populations that are homeless, but if it's hard for families, is it also hard in this economy for single people sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just hard for our homeless families. It's home for those tens of thousands of families that reside in Sarasota County that make less than a living wage. So even if you're not homeless, there's there's been documented tens of thousands of families in Sarasota County that every week they have to make choices as to whether they're going to pay for transportation, health care for their children, education, healthy, nutritious food, rent, or utilities. And that is a very difficult choice to make. And so if you're not giving your children healthy, nutritious food, you're going to run into problems with obesity and diabetes. If you're not providing preventative health care, then you're going to run into problems with more difficult to cure health problems down the road. And of course, if you're not paying your rent, you're out on the streets. It's just a vicious cycle that these families are put into. For a family in Sarasota to make ends meet, the minimum amount that they need to be making is about $19 to $20 an hour. So even if you had two adults working minimum wage, you're still nowhere near making a livable wage in Sarasota County.
How much do you have to make in Sarasota?
About $19.85, 95 cents. For a family of three, in order to
have housing.
In order to have housing, provide for nutritious food,
let's not go into the cents. 1985. Let's just say $20 an hour, right?
$20 an hour.
But if you get a job, well, Jamil, if you get a job at, I don't know, Subway or someplace making sandwiches, I'm not picking on Subway, but some retail outlet, or you get hired for day labor, are you making $20 an hour in Sarasota?
No, you are not. You're making around $8, maybe.
Maybe. So basically, the jobs that are out here, you're falling way short of what you need.
Beyond short. I mean, we look at the market rate for rent for 2014 for a 2 or 3 bedroom place, and it was around $1,100 a month. There's no way that someone working in fast food, or even some of our CNAs are having difficulty making ends meet, and they have a certification.
What is a CNA?
CNA is a certified nursing assistant. They help in nursing homes and whatnot.
So you're saying then that these are people who care for others and they can't take care of themselves.
Exactly.
And that's what can you say about that, right? Yeah. We're depending on people to save our very lives, but we're not taking care of them. So it's sad. At the microphone, we have a couple of people who want to speak. If you want to stand there and put on those headphones, and you can speak into the microphone, and the gentleman next to you can help you with that if you need help. You have the honor of being our first person at the street mic. Would you like to tell us your name?
Hi, my name is Susanna.
Hi, Susanna. Welcome to the Homelessness Marathon.
I'm a well-educated individual.
Are you a homeless person?
I am.
And where do you sleep at night?
I sleep behind a friend's house in a yard with blankets under the trees. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the Resurrection House. With a lot of volunteers and a lot of precious hearts, there is a place to get your laundry done, have a shower, and also the Salvation Army. Although I wouldn't want to sleep at the Salvation Army because it's way crowded. But I would like to say that there are a lot of educated people out here that are just down on their luck. I personally never thought that this could happen to me. but I just want to say there's a lot of compassion and a lot of love out here. People are good to each other. They share with each other. They care. And it's not what people think. It's not a lot of thievery and nastiness. For the most part, it's a lot of love and it's a lot of caring. It could happen to anybody. I never thought it could happen to me.
Well, that's the number one thing on this show that homeless people say. It didn't think it can. People who are listening out there should know that the Resurrection House, which is a wonderful place, is what's called a day shelter. You don't sleep there, but you can come there during the day. You can get meals, you can get laundry done, you can wash yourself up, you can take a shower, and you can also get help. If you can get services, you can sign up for things, right?
But I do want to say this. There's an easy formula for getting on the streets and staying on the streets. Drugs, alcohol, and bad behavior will take everything a person owns and put them right down. And that is why, just the clean living and just you have to really concentrate on getting up and getting out, Like, it could happen to anybody, but the thing is, like, people that are down here doing stupid things, they're going to stay stuck. But you have to really lift yourself up and pull yourself together and do the right thing. And that's the only way you're going to get off these streets.
Well, of course, rich people can do all the drugs they want and they don't wind up homeless. So it's not just the drugs. Let's be clear about that. But I really want to hear just a little bit more of what you have to say here, because your testimony is that we should know that there are a lot of decent people out here on the streets.
Well, I will say there are a lot of rich people that are really unhappy.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of homeless people that are very, very happy because they're closer to nature and they're closer to getting themselves together. And people are really trying very hard to get up off these streets. I can promise you that. I personally am trying to get some things together with some artwork and, pulling some booths together on the farmers market and, getting artists together to concentrate their energy to raise money to give back to the people, immediately give back to them and bring them up off the streets and help them get cell phones and shelter and everything that I can do myself. That's my calling. If I hadn't been out here myself, I wouldn't even feel the calling to even want to give back and try to bring people up. But it is my calling, and I am out here. I'm actually grateful for the experience because it's teaching me a whole lot. It's really teaching me a lot of humility and a lot of love. At the end of the day, love is the only thing that we really have to share with each other. I never thought in a million years that this could happen to me.
How did it happen to you?
Well, I got into some trouble. I did a few things wrong, and I got caught doing it, and then I got robbed, and then I got put in jail, and then I got out of jail.
You got in a downward spiral.
I got in a downward spiral, and then out through the downward spiral, I was able to get more completely cleaned up from all of that and in touch with my own higher power and my own love of life. And there's nothing that compares to the beauty of life itself. And I'm grateful for that.
Well, we're grateful to you for speaking on the Homelessness Marathon.
Thank
and
you.
We wish you every best thing in the world for you.
Thank you for letting me share, and I love all the people out here. And let me just give a shout out to all my friends, brothers, and sisters, and I love all of you with all my heart.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And, that's an important point, is that, homeless people are not just fighting each other. I mean, there are some bad ones, right? But they're out there taking care of each other. That's why human beings have communities in the first place. So, at the microphone, we now have actually a genuine homeless family here, if you want to step up to the mic.
Hey, you can. She's in the picture.
Yeah. You want to put those headphones on? Somebody? And I don't know where they went. Where are the headphones for the street microphone? Where did they go? Oh, there we go. Well, all right, so we got some headphones. I don't know. What is your name?
My name is Terry Zarnick.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Sorry. My name is Terry Zarnick, but everyone calls me Katie.
Katie. Okay, Katie, welcome. And that's your mother standing next to you?
Yep. This is my mom, Donna.
So you're a homeless family unit. Mm-hmm. And let's hear your story. And then we have actually 3 people who work with homeless families here. And we can maybe see how your story is different or the same and what resources there might be. We only have one set of headphones, but since we're not taking calls right at the moment, you can actually hear me, so you don't need it. If the headphones you need a lot, because if we have a caller on the line, but right now we don't. So, Katie, tell me your story.
Well, I was born in Sarasota, but I was raised down in Venice. Pretty much, when I graduated high school, I was trying to get a job. Didn't really work out much. You know, refused to go to college because I didn't want to go to college and not have a job. Then about 2012, my grandmother, her mother, went into a nursing home, and we struggled with the bank for like 3 years trying to get the place, situated and try to get a loan. Didn't always work out. And got a job, lost it. Got another job, lost it. And then suddenly our house got bought, and we became homeless. And after a couple days, the friends of ours took us up to Sarasota, and now we're here.
Oh, well, we
That
hope
was
it
back
works
in like
out.
2012.
So you've been homeless for about 2 years now, 3 years?
3 years.
And your name, Mom?
My name is Donna Zarnik.
Okay, Donna. So I'm not sure I quite understand exactly the sequence here. You had housing, right?
Yes, we did have it, but what had happened was that when my dad passed away in '04, a friend of mine told me to have my mom put everything in my name.
Okay.
Okay, and it was including the mortgage.
Uh-huh.
Okay, fine. Well, when we went to the bank, I explained to my mom that night, and she accepted it really good. That's a good idea. But when we went to the bank, he saw a guy there. We gave him all the information, and when it came out, he did not put my name on the loan, so to where if something happens to my mom, we can take and make the payments.
Oh, you mean so you may not be an expert on mortgage papers, and maybe you didn't realize they had made this mistake, in other words.
Right. I didn't know this until a month later when I tried to make the payments when she had the job.
Right.
I tried to make I goes, oh man, great, fantastic. I can go make the payments now. Well, when I went to the bank, they said no. They would not let me have the account number. I goes, okay, write the account number down, and I'll take and give it to the teller, and I can make the payment through them. No.
Well, let me ask Jamil here. Jamil, have you ever heard a story like this where people are trying to make payments or whatever, and it's just some bureaucratic thing? Maybe they got a little bit screwed over, if you'll pardon my putting it that way, by somebody in some office somewhere. Is this the first time you've ever heard a story like that?
Actually, it's not. We just recently had a case where we had a mother, a disabled sister, and a disabled daughter all live in the household, and the mom of the mother passed away. And she called us because she couldn't make payments on the account because it went to probate and they wouldn't allow her to make payments on it. So this isn't actually the first time I've heard this situation
This is
happen.
like a catch-22 that happened.
Yes, it is.
And I'll tell you, I know maybe you've heard this, John. I've heard related stories. I've heard a bunch of stories doing this over the years of people who became caregivers for a parent. So they gave up their housing to move into the house with the parent, and then when the parent died, they had no housing because they couldn't stay in the parent's house anymore. Have you ever heard a story like that?
We've heard it. We've heard it unfortunately, too many times. And, the legal needs of folks like this do not end even when they become homeless. Mm-hmm. And one of the services that we're working to provide for homeless families is access to free legal assistance through the Shapiro Goldman Law Firm and through the Legal Aid of Minnesota, where families like this can see a competent lawyer and assist them with these legal problems, because until the legal problems are set aside or in some way remedied, they're just going to become a reoccurring nightmare for the families, preventing them from becoming homed somewhere down the road. So the story is unfortunately common. I would like to point out one thing, which is it may not be self-evident to everyone listening to the broadcast, is that the typical stigma that we attach to a homeless person is this panhandling male on the street that's pestering passerbys and businesses in the downtown area. We've heard from 3 ladies so far this evening, and the majority of homeless individuals in Sarasota County do come nowhere near to fitting that stereotype.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
Only about 18% of them do. The rest are ladies like this and children that really need the community's sympathy, support, and assistance.
I like to say even the ones who fit the stereotype don't fit it either, because
Right.
they've all got more complicated stories than what we're told. But I'm glad you said that.
In a state that's cut mental health treatment to the bone year after year
well, and
after
people
year.
who want drug treatment, they have to wait years sometimes to get it. So these are all important points, and that's why we do this show, because the real story doesn't get out there. We have a caller on the line, so let's take a call, and then we'll come back to this discussion. Please stay there. We have Lydia on the line from Maryland. Lydia, welcome to the Homelessness Marathon.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. What's on your mind, Lydia?
Okay, well, I'm a formerly homeless veteran, and I don't feel like veterans are getting the attention that we need and deserve in regards to housing issues, because they cut the funding for veteran housing. It's, I know you've heard a lot about the veteran health care scandal, but the housing, or I should say lack of housing for veterans, is just as dire a situation across the country. There's a serious dearth of HUD-VASH, that's what they're called, HUD-VASH vouchers, which operates somewhat like the Section 8. I'm sure you've heard of the housing choice vouchers.
Yeah, well, Section 8 is a subsidized voucher that you're supposed to take and go and get housing. But in some locales, you can't actually get housing with them. I remember when we were in Boston, and they talked about you had to be 40 miles out of Boston before you could find a landlord that'd actually take one, because the rents are way higher in Boston than what the vouchers provide. So it's kind of an inadequate help. And you're talking about something that's similar, I take it.
Absolutely. These are vouchers that operate in a similar capacity, but they're supposed to be set aside strictly for veterans. Now, they put so many restrictions on these vouchers and who can be eligible and who is ineligible that it cut a lot of, like, for instance, if a veteran had any type of police action, say an arrest for a misdemeanor or felony, that automatically disqualified them. If they were not considered chronically homeless, that also automatically disqualified them. If they served less than 2 years in the military and they had a certain
Well,
type
what
of
if you served a
discharge,
year and you got
automatically
shot? What about
disqualified
that?
them. I'm sorry?
What if you served a year in the military and you had to leave because you got shot in a war zone? Do you lose your rights then?
Do you lose?
Do you lose the help?
what?
I mean, there's some people who don't serve more than a year because they're in a war zone and they're injured.
This is true. They don't qualify.
Really? You mean
Currently,
you can be a
they do
Purple
not
Heart
qualify
veteran
for the
and
HUD-VASH voucher.
I can't even believe that. Even I can't believe that. I thought I'd heard everything. You can be in a war zone. You can get shot fighting for this country or whatever this country says we're supposed to fight for. That's another question. And
I'm sorry. I can't. I can barely hear you. What
I'm
were you
sorry.
saying?
I'm saying you're telling me that you can be a soldier, fight for this country in one of our wars, get wounded, and be out of the service, and you can't get, if you have earned in 2 years, they don't care even if you have a Purple Heart. Lydia, are you there? I think we.
I am.
Well, Lydia, go ahead.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
All right, well, Lydia, then we'll let you go. But thank you for raising this issue.
Yeah, I heard that last part. What was your question?
No, well, it's okay. Tell us, just make a last statement because we're going to have to move on. But tell me what you want the country to know about veteran homelessness.
There needs to be more attention paid to why there are not enough HUD-VASH vouchers being distributed across the country. Although they advertise that there actually are not.
Right.
And that makes veterans suffer and die on the street.
I'll tell you one thing. Thank you, Lydia, for the call. I want to say one word about HUD before we get to this move on. But I want to say one thing about HUD, which is that HUD does not care what happens to homeless people. And that is a national disgrace. Because in various cities, homeless people are attacked on the street. The police break up their encampments. And between a city which treats homeless people well and a city that treats homeless people badly, it makes no difference to HUD. You don't ever hear about HUD cutting off funding from a city that treats homeless people badly. And that is simply a disgrace. There is simply no standard nationally for how homeless people should be treated. Donna, what is it you need to get out of homelessness now?
Well, what I need to get out of the homeless is I got to go through a reconstruction surgery. And I had it done the first time a year ago, but then when it came back again, they just because they couldn't get a hold of me, they closed my case. And that's what I need right now is to have the surgery done. Plus, then I can get out there and get a job. Otherwise, I would love to get out there and get one. I really do.
But where do you sleep at night?
We're sleeping out in the woods.
And which is probably a good idea. You don't want to be found by the authorities, in other
Right.
words. Right. So you cannot get a job now, and nobody is offering you housing. Now, these are three people here who are in the business of helping. Ellen, can you help this? This is a family unit here.
I could try to connect you with resources for your medical. I could try to help you with resources for your medical needs and for your surgery.
Dr. Schneider that comes here to the Reds, he was calling all over the place, and he couldn't get one. He could not get one doctor. He got one doctor, but he needed another doctor to help with the surgery, and he couldn't get another one.
Well, Ellen, this is a homeless family unit. Donna here needs surgery before she can work, but is there no subsidized housing available, nothing available for them even if they can't work at this point?
Well, the wait list for Section 8 and for housing, disabled housing and regular housing is closed right now. So they can't get into public housing. In order to get into their own place, usually they have to show some income in order to do that.
We don't have any. They don't have any income. The only income we got is the reward money that she gets every other month from college.
And if I fail a class or I don't take a class, I don't get paid.
So you're going to college even while you're homeless?
Mm-hmm. Online, Southern New Hampshire University.
And you're doing it online?
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier if you're living in the woods, I guess, huh?
Actually, I come to town every day. I go to the library 6 days a week, pretty much.
So what you're saying, though, I mean, this is so important for people to hear. You're saying, Donna, that you're disabled, can't get help for your medical condition. Katie, you're saying that you're motivated, you want to study, you want to make something of yourself.
Pretty much.
Right, but there's just not much out there for you, right?
No.
Well, the problem is the fact I don't have a mental condition. I have a neurological condition. I'm an epileptic.
No kidding.
She got it from me.
I checked out coastal manatee glens, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and they say they can't help me because it's not a mental disorder or a behavioral problem. It's a neurological. So another reason why I can't really get a job is because I can't get back on my meds, and because I can't get back on my meds, no job will hire me because if I go into a seizure, I'm at risk.
We have a member of my family has a seizure disorder. It's not epilepsy, but it's a different seizure disorder.
Sorry.
He has this problem, which is it's hard to be on a job because at any moment he can just pitch over, and they don't really want to deal with that, which is totally understandable. I mean, I understand why people don't want to deal with it, but on the other hand, what do you do? You got to be employed. You got to have money.
If I may, the Salvation Army actually has a program called the Hope Program, and it takes single females and single males. If you would like to come over to the Welcome Center over at the 1400 10th Street location and talk to Sandra Mendoza, she might be able to help you figure out a plan to get to where you need to and be able to provide housing at the shelter while you're trying to get everything straight.
Well, I also heard they help out with getting into that Oak Ridge Apartments. I can pay $1,050 every month, which is how much it costs for 2 months. Mm-hmm. So, because it includes everything, I don't have to worry about electric, water, or cable bills coming up, and I can't afford it the next month.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I would like to get off the streets so I can, try to at least look for some kind of part-time job. That's not going to really stress me out, or if they will take me.
And then that's the whole purpose of the whole program is to give you guys a chance to be able to get a little, stable in a stable place at least for 30 days so that you can figure out what your next step is. So you can just come over to the Welcome Center. It's right behind the shelter on 1400 10th Street.
Well, we certainly hope this connects you with some help. But into the general question, it's hard to find that help, right? Now, I remember when Ronald Reagan was president. I'm old enough to remember things like this. I had a kind of funny experience coming to Sarasota because I had heard the city was full of old people, and then I looked around, they were all my age. I thought, wow. But in any case, he said that the problem is only that people don't know where the help is, why it's right around the corner, and they just don't know, all that stuff. But in fact, it's hard to find help. You're people trying to find help, right? And it's just not much out there, which is the truth. I know because I've heard this story so many times, right? So tell us one more thing before I let you go, because I'm sure people are interested in this story. What is it like living in the woods? I mean, what do you do do you have a tent? Do you have a?
We both have a tent. It's not really big, but it's big enough to fit the two of us plus our belongings. And pretty much we go out there. Well, no, nobody bothers us. The only thing we got to worry about is the animals, and plus if we get a drunk who accidentally stumbles onto our property, well, / campsite. And pretty much we just go there at night, stay there till morning, come down here, go to the res, do what we gotta do there. I go to school, she does whatever.
And you shower at the Resurrection House here?
Shower and do laundry.
You got alligators there?
No,
Oh, not
don't jinx it, please.
Okay, I'm telling you that.
I know, but there's a creek back there. I'm not sure if there's an alligator or not, but I don't want to test that theory.
I have to tell you, I like to watch survival shows on TV, and we all have fantasies. What would you do if you were lost in the woods? Yeah. That's the one thing I don't ever want to deal with is alligators. I think that would unnerve me completely. So I hope you never run into that.
Stay out of Mayaca City and Miami then.
Yeah.
Well, Donna, can you tell us just one more word here, which is, I think everybody watching this or listening to this wants you to get the help you need, but is there any good side to it? Is there any good side to the situation that you're in?
Yes, there
Into
is.
the mic.
Yes, there is. I'm also working on some quilts that I'm wanting to take and make up samples and get them out. And I'm even working on my shirt, my advertisement shirt. And hopefully it picks up. Is what I'm hoping.
So you mean you're saying that the good side is that you have some time to do your own work and stuff, because you don't have a boss standing over you saying you got to record it. No time clock in the tent, right?
No.
All right. Well, maybe there's people out there who envy you your life of leisure, but we all hope you get inside into a nice place, and we thank you very much for coming and speaking on the Homelessness Marathon.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
Great. We appreciate it very much. John, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah.
Turning my fist in front of my forehead, which means God bless you all.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
John, you work with a foundation, and the foundation must have connections to the government. I mean, it's not like you're in a closet somewhere, right? All three of you work with organizations that
Sure.
must. Well, you hear a story like this, and then you talk to people in the Sarasota government, right?
We do.
And then you say to them, people need help, and there's no help. There's not enough help. And then what do they say back?
Well, I think the first part of it is the education process. We think that our disadvantaged citizens, the healthcare and the education needs can just be ignored and they will go away. But if one looks at the issue in a very businesslike manner and looks at the costs of emergency transportation, the cost of these ladies going to the emergency room, and the cost of treatment after the fact, any community in America that looks at it honestly will see that the investment up front, the medical investment up front, is much wiser. So we need to work not only in conjunction with the local government, but also with the state and federal government, because
Right.
most of these monies are pass-throughs for these large ticket items. Like reconstructive surgery is I don't know, Donna didn't mention how much it was, but I would suspect that it's a pretty sizable.
Everybody
Medical
knows
bill.
medical care in the United States
Absolutely.
is not cheap.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not cheap. So we need to see not only the moral obligation of providing these services to people like Donna and her family, but also the financial benefits to state government and to local governments by investing in the families up front so that we don't hit these very high dollar expenses down the road.
Well, you're certainly right that this is a state and federal problem as well. And that's why we say if we come to a city, we're not here to pick on the city, because we know that no city, some are better and some are worse, but no city can solve this problem by itself. That's just the reality. But let me just ask you one more thing about this. When you talk to the city leaders about this, and you say, we don't have the resources, what do they say back? Do they say, well, we don't care, we're hard-hearted people, and, put them in body bags and ship them out, we don't care? What do they say back?
No, they don't say no. It's really kind of in many respects, their hands are tied as well. I mean, a city the size of Sarasota cannot build and operate, a hospital, but in conjunction with working with, if the money was there, if it was available from the state government, then the cities can collectively work together and bring about change. So it's not so much, my frustration is not so much with the local officials as it is with the state and federal officials that are constantly passing down this devolution of responsibilities for these costs to local governments, to the point where local governments are overburdened, and the tax rolls themselves, local government's primary source of income is the property tax, and it has limitations. The federal and the state government, have much greater opportunities for larger sums of money that can be invested for these problems that require those larger sums of money to do it. But what we're seeing and what we've seen in the state of Florida for the last 10 and 15 years, and I spent the last 12 years as a county commissioner, so I can speak from firsthand experience, is we have seen a regression in the amount of money that comes from the federal government to the state government, and then ultimately the local officials are left holding the bag.
Right, so you get blamed, in other words, for things that you didn't do, basically.
In many instances.
That's a complaint a lot of homeless people have, too, oddly enough.
Exactly right. The buck stops where? At the person at the end of the line.
And then they get blamed that they're lazy and no good, right? Is what happens.
Not by us.
I am glad to hear that. So, Ellen, what kind of a caseload do you have of homeless families that you deal with?
Well, I'm the school district's homeless liaison.
Oh, and that's an important point. We should point out that the school districts have a different definition of homelessness than HUD, which I've already said is a disgraceful organization, and we just don't have time in 14 hours for me to tell you everything I think about HUD. But tell us the difference.
The education definition is the McKinney-Vento definition. It was passed in 1987, and it defines homelessness as the lack of having a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So it includes families that are living in shelters, as well as families that are in cars or campgrounds or motels, as well as families that are doubled up due to loss of housing.
Doubled up means you moved in with your uncle or something, and now there's two families in an apartment or a house that was originally meant for one. Right?
Exactly, and it's a temporary thing. It's really the reality of homelessness for families and youth, because they often are afraid to go to a shelter, or a shelter is full. They certainly don't want to be on the street, and motels are very expensive. So about 70% of the families that I work with are actually doubled up temporarily, and they move place to place to place. They have no legal right to stay where they're staying, and a fight happens and they have to leave.
Right. Let me give out those numbers again, by the way. Anybody can call in at 877-NOBODY-8. And if you're homeless, formerly homeless, or afraid you're about to be homeless, you can also call in at 866-LEFT-OUT. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about this discrepancy between HUD and the Department of Education. For one thing, the HUD count of homeless people has been declining for the last 6 or 7 years, but the Department of Education's count has been skyrocketing. So can you talk to us about why anyone should think your count would be more accurate than HUD's count?
Well, the reality for homeless families is that they will often live doubled up in place to place. I had a family that I worked with last month, and the mom is disabled, and they were evicted from their house. They had nowhere to go. All of their belongings were out on the curb, and they ended up going to stay in a motel. An agency didn't pay for that. They borrowed money and paid for it themselves. So HUD didn't consider them homeless. To me and to that family, they're homeless.
Right.
So,
but they had a roof over their heads, even though they were going to bankrupt themselves getting it.
Right.
As a desperation measure.
Right. So HUD doesn't consider that homeless, and so the HUD number keeps going down and down, but they're not really being truthful about the living situations of the families that I work with.
You know, Senator Rob Portman of Ohio and Dianne Feinstein of California jointly introduced a thing in Congress to make the Department of Education standard the standard for HUD as well. We tried to get Rob Portman on the show, but he was not available, so I'm sorry about that. But that's a Democrat and a Republican. This is not really necessarily a partisan issue. This is just a common sense issue. Jamil?
Ellen and I were talking about that just today.
Oh, yeah?
And we plan on visiting our local congressmen and our delegation and asking their support for co-sponsoring that bill.
Uh-huh. Well, I certainly hope they do. Jamil, what is the impact on a homeless family? You work with some of these families that have to move a lot, that are doubled up and have these kinds of problems. Have you worked with them as well?
My staff has worked with them. I haven't worked directly with them, but I've had about 13 years of working with homeless and potentially homeless families.
Well, what is the impact on the kids in these families?
Their test scores can go down lower. Their attendance for school goes down. You have behavior issues because, like anyone, when you're living in a situation that's not ideal, children have a tendency to act out. So you have behavioral issues. You have depression with the parents. There's numerous things that can happen with a family that's not in a fixed place.
And we should point out, too, that you don't have to be a bad person not to get along with the people you're doubled up with.
Exactly.
Because I got a lot of relatives and friends that would maybe take me in, thank God, and they love me and I love them. But as the weeks and months might wear out and wear on and things come up, people want their space, and friction will develop.
It's nothing like a place called home. And when
Of
you're
your
living
own.
Exactly. When you're living in someone else's space, you have to make compromises. And sometimes for that long time, that can be stressful on a family, both families, actually.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, the kind of homelessness I particularly experienced myself was I was couch surfing for a year and a half. And every homeless person has to keep some kind of a good attitude. Some self-medicate, which is another way to go. But you have to kind of wake up in the morning thinking things are going to be all right or they're not going to be all right. You just have to do it. So I was not conscious really fully of the stress I was under. It was only when I got out of that situation and I looked back on it, I realized really in a lot of ways how very difficult it had been for me. I looked back at the things I had written, things I had done, and I realized, my God, I was way more stressed than I even acknowledged to myself. And this was high-end homelessness. This is the best kind of homelessness where people take you in and you can have a bathroom and a roof over your head. This is why people who are on the streets, they say it takes 6 months or so just to come out of shock. And well, you alluded to it, Jamil, that maybe people can get 30 days, maybe 60 days of help, but the fact is it takes people maybe months just to come out of the shock of being on the streets.
And that's kind of the point. We want to be able to get them stable, get them in a place that they can relax for a moment so that we can figure out a plan. Can you imagine telling someone, hey, you just need to go get a job, but they don't have a fixed place to stay? When depression sets in and they go in for that interview, not something they do on purpose, but they're going to that interview, you're not exactly, the most happiest person at that point.
That's right.
So, giving them a place to stay, even if it is for 30 days, gives them a moment to figure out what to do next. And it gives them a case manager that can help them along the way. So they're not doing it on their own. One of the things we like to increase is hope. We try to evaluate where are they when they come in and try to figure out where do they want to be. And we try to help them along that journey.
Dealing with an employer is kind of like dealing with a wild animal in a way. They say don't let them smell your fear.
Yes.
And it's true. You hear this a lot from homeless people. You just can't let your desperation show because they don't want to hire desperate people. It just turns them off. And this is a real issue. And I can tell you, I'm not somebody who's good at hiding his emotions. Some people completely, you don't know what's going on inside them, and they're actually kind of dangerous. I kind of prefer the people you know what's going on. But, Ellen, that sort of suggests in a way that when you're homeless, you almost have to be inhuman in a way to succeed because you can't show what you're feeling. You can't say what you're thinking. You have to pretend almost to be a kind of person you're not. How can people do that?
Homeless individuals, including children, are under tremendous stress. Just like you said, you didn't know until you were out of the situation how difficult it was for you. I have a young mom that I work with. She's 19, and she had been coming to me to try to get into a housing program that we have for young parents that are in school, and she really appeared mentally ill. She couldn't follow through with basic tasks. She talked about people trying to hurt her. There seemed to be some things really wrong going on there. But she persevered and she made it through the process and she got into housing, and it's amazing. she's like a different person. She is doing so well. She's working a job and she's in school and taking care of her child. And, you know, I think she knew she was under a lot of stress, but she was just trying to hold it all in and survive.
Right.
It
You
was
may
very
know it,
difficult.
but there's knowing and there's knowing.
Yeah.
You know it's not a good situation, but you just can't pause to take it all in because you got to function. So, and you bring up a good point, though, because some of the symptoms that we see on, the majority of homeless people are not on the streets, but some of the things we see among people on the streets, where we see that they're talking to themselves or they're drinking out of open containers or whatever they're doing, these may not be the things that made them homeless. These may be the things that started after they became homeless.
Right. Their symptoms with anxiety and depression, a lot of it can be based on their circumstances.
And that they self-medicate or they go over the edge because of the stress or something like that. So we shouldn't just assume when we see a homeless person that that's how they got there necessarily because of these things, right?
Absolutely. It's very hard to find the services you need. And most people that I know that are homeless actually stay homeless a lot longer than you think. I think I heard HUD say that an average homeless family is homeless for about 90 days, which is kind of laughable because it's the same period that a lot of shelters let families stay. But the families that I know, they're homeless 6 months or more.
But like I said, don't get me started on HUD. I mean, we're talking about the inadequacy of what's going on, and if I'm the HUD secretary, I'm in the president's office camping out every day I can be saying this is a disgrace, it can't go on. I'm not selling this like, oh, look at all the help we've got and look at all the wonderful things we're doing. But unfortunately, I'm not, what can I say? I mean, you know, I wouldn't want to denigrate politicians who we all know are so wonderful in this country. But the fact is, we don't have a lot of politicians fighting for homeless people. That's just the reality of it. We have a caller. Those numbers to call in, by the way, are 877-NOBODY-8 or 866-LEFT-OUT. We have Fran from Bradenton. Fran, welcome to the Homelessness Marathon. Fran? Hi, Fran.
Hi, how's everybody there tonight?
Well, it's raining. My nose is sniffling. I apologize to that. It's kind of chilly, but we're all glad to be here. At least I am.
So, are you outside?
We are outside. We're always outside because we want to dramatize the fact that people live outside, and if it's a little uncomfortable for us for a few minutes, think what it's like to be out there 24/7.
It's pretty bad to be out there 24/7, especially being a female. It's real bad to be out 24/7.
Are you homeless, friend? Are you homeless?
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm homeless.
And do you want to tell us your story?
Well, I'm originally from Michigan. I drove a semi truck for Ford Motor Company. I made $125,000 a year. I fractured my leg at work, and it was 10 below zero. And I fell and fractured my fibula on ice. And I laid there for 45 minutes until someone finally found me. I got addicted to Oxycontin, and that was my downfall from there. It completely destroyed my life, lost a lot of things, including my dignity, my home, the roof over my head. So I've been through quite a bit. There isn't anything out there in Bradenton or Sarasota for women to get any kind of help. There's more for men than there is for women. I take a lot of chances being out there, being beat up, being raped, being taking my things from me. I'm handicapped from my job.
And you're saying you were not like a drug abuser. You had an accident and you were in pain. That's how you got on the pain meds.
That's exactly how it happened. That's exactly how it happened.
And I'm sure the panel here that I have, you've all heard this kind of story before? Yes? This is not the first time we've heard this, right? No. This is what happens to people. And you're saying there's no help. But hang on a second, Fran. So, John, she says there's no help for women.
And there is some help in Sarasota, but again, all of the help comes with limitations. If she's a resident of Manatee County, they also have a program up there, and they also have an elected official. Her name is Commissioner Robert D. Sabatino, and she is a champion of just the type of situation that your caller is referring to. women that are coming out of prison or have some sort of a record and need that second chance. And so I would encourage her to get in contact. Maybe Jamil or Ellen knows the name of the agency up there, but there is some assistance up there. I'm not saying that it's adequate to meet all the needs of the
Is
community.
it true, though, that it's harder for women than for men?
It's much harder, and it's a good thing that he did bring that thing up about having a record. You know.
Do you have a record,
people,
friend?
I have felonies. Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? That happened when I was 37 years old. I'm 53 now, and I'm still being penalized for something that I did.
Jamil is nodding her head.
That is something that follows people. It interferes with housing. It interferes with employment. You know, I've had people that have had one felony when they were 18. And, I mean, when you're 18, you do things that you shouldn't do. But to have it affect you when you're 50 is just ridiculous to me. You know, people will not hire you. It's hard to find housing if you have a felony. It depends on what type of felony.
But really what we're doing in this society, if I may say so, is we're finding reasons not to help people instead of reasons to help them, right? You see a felony on their record and oh, well, forget it, you know? And you can be there. So, Fran, where do you sleep at night?
I had been staying at the Salvation Army. When you can get $1, it's $10 per night.
Mm-hmm.
When you because of the hardship that you're under, it does cost sometimes $1 a night.
So you have to pay to be at the Salvation Army.
Where are you going to get the $1 a night when you're not even allowed to panhandle?
Right.
They expect you to go ask somebody for that money.
So it's not free help, in other words.
No, there's no free help. There's no free homeless place, the homeless shelters to go in and get out of the cold, unless it's a cold night or it's raining, and that's very seldom that even happens where they let you in.
Well, Fran, we've got to move along because I got people here at the mic, and it's kind of cold out here, so it's getting cold. So I want to move along, but Fran, we want to wish you every success in getting out of homelessness, and we hope you'll follow up and try and find the help that is in Bradenton. And we wish you all the best, and we thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
At the microphone, we have Cindy and Dale, and Cindy is in a wheelchair and is disabled. Cindy, you want to tell us what your story is?
I got hit by a car.
Okay. And you are disabled as a result of that?
Yep.
Speak into the mic.
Yes, I am disabled because of that.
And do you have any prognosis of ever getting out of that chair, or are you permanently disabled?
She's got to start working her legs and stuff again.
So maybe there's hope, but you got to have treatment. And it can't be easy getting treatment when you're homeless.
No, it's not.
It's very difficult.
Right. And where do the two of you sleep? Are you a married couple or are you a couple?
Well, what I wanted to do was actually propose to her.
Oh, no kidding.
Right now.
Would you? Go. We would be so honored by that.
Cindy.
Yes.
Would you be honored to be my wife?
Yes, Dale, I would.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well.
There you go.
Well, I can tell you in 17 years, that's the first time that's ever happened on this show, and it's kind of moving. And Dale, you want us to know, I take it, that homeless people still love each other, right?
That is correct.
And care for each other.
Right. I've known Cindy for 5 years, and right now we're just sleeping in a van.
Oh, well, you're lucky you got a van, right?
Well, I just bought it. They still don't have it running yet.
But it keeps you dry, right?
Right, that's it.
Which may be more than we can do tonight.
But the thing is, they said this is the last night we can stay in there.
Oh, really?
Until I pay it off.
Oh, boy. And how do you get money to pay for it?
Well, I get SSD.
Okay.
But
that's Social Security Disability.
Right, but it doesn't pay for everything.
May I ask how much you get from Social Security?
Right now I'm getting about $800 a month.
Okay.
That's not.
And in other words, people should understand they don't give SSD away like hotcakes or something.
No.
You have to be examined by.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
Right. And you have to be examined by more than one independent doctor who has to certify you. You can't just walk in and say you need it.
It took me 5 years to get
Right.
mine.
And at the end of that process, and you're truly needy and truly disabled, they still don't give you enough to live on.
No, they don't.
And Cindy, do you have a disability as well? I mean, I know I don't mean like do you have a disability. I mean, do you have SSD as well?
No, she has a widow benefit,
Uh-huh.
but when we get married, there's a possibility she might lose that.
Oh, really? You mean they're going to penalize you for loving each other?
Right.
It's just, this is why we do this show, because the reality is so different from what the fantasy of
How much
it
is the widow How much is your payment? How much do you get for the widow?
$570.
Okay, so that's 5 and 8, was it?
Right.
So that's 13. The rule of thumb is they can afford to spend about 35% for housing.
Well, we know that people spend a lot more than that.
They do, but in order to, again, take care of their health care needs and food and transportation. So let's bump it up to 40, which goes beyond most of the federal standards that
Right.
they will use for qualifications.
Sure.
And then I would challenge someone who is in a comfortable home setting to help them find a place to live on that monthly income.
Yeah, yeah, and there's that, and plus the fact you got to have first and last month and security
Well,
deposit.
I have a RV trailer, 28-foot
Oh,
RV
hey, good for
trailer.
you.
But because I have a felony, I can't find a place to put it. And that's
That
bothers
housing
me.
barrier.
Really, and
That's
that's
that
another
housing
disability.
barrier.
And by the way, city after city, I don't know about Sarasota, has made it illegal to live in a car.
Yes.
So if you have a car, you have an asset. You're a lucky homeless person.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was homeless, I had a car. That's how I got from one friend's house to another. So that means you have a safe place and a dry place and a place you can retreat to. And they make it, instead of saying, well, great, here's a place you can park and get your life together, they make it harder for you.
Yes, correct.
Well, listen, there are 3 people here. I don't want to draft them into service here, but you got 3 people here who I hope can help you, because we're going to be off this segment in a minute or so, and I say buttonhole them and grab them, and if they showed up here, then they volunteered to be helping people. So we just hope you get all the help you need, and it's so moving to me that we had a proposal on this show. I don't think I'm going to remember that for a long time.
And let me know if you need a volunteer to be the witness at your ceremony.
Okay.
I would be honored.
All right. We're going to get married at Pentecostal at 12th and 301.
I cannot hear a thing now. I've lost all audio. I don't know even if we're on the air anymore. So if the engineering is listening, we may still be talking to the nation here. I don't know what's going on. But we want to wish you the very best. And thank you so much for this contribution to the Homelessness Marathon. And I hope you will talk to these people after this hour is over. I am told that we are still on the air, actually, and we'll hope to straighten this out before. You got a last word? What would you like America to know about your situation? One thing.
We can use all the help we can get.
What's that?
We can use all the help we can get.
Well said. And let me ask you each for just a brief second. Jamil, what would you like to say?
If we could deal with the housing issue in Sarasota, I think that would help out tremendously.
John?
I agree. It is. We have a community that has a marketplace where it's very easy to build $200,000 to $800,000 homes, but each one of those homes creates a need.
You are listening to the Homelessness Marathon, produced in conjunction with Community Radio WSLR of Sarasota, Florida. The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the producing or participating organizations or of the originating or affiliated radio stations. To order CDs of this broadcast or to contact the Homelessness Marathon, go to homelessnessmarathon.org.